Configuring frame relay. As I mentioned at the end of the last nugget, I didn't really get frame relay until I did the configuration. And not just of the end devices, but putting the whole thing together, like configuring the service provider side of it as well. So that's what I intend to do here. I want to run through two big configurations, which is going to be the multi-point and the point-to-point. And somewhere in the midst of all that, I'm also going to do the configuration of the frame relay switch, which is the device sitting in the middle of the whole frame relay cloud. It's the service provider. And then we're going to look at verifying and troubleshooting frame relay, some of the key commands you can use. Well, let's start off with my not so suggested configuration of multi-point. Yeah, one of those have to learn it, not really want to. So take a look at the topology. What do we have? We've got hub and spoke, where router 1 is the hub, and then we've got spoke and spoke. Looking at the creamy center of that frame relay cloud, so there's a frame relay device or devices in that cloud. You can see that we've got two virtual circuits coming from the hub. We've got Delcy 102. That goes from router 1 over to router 2, and then Delcy 201 to get back. You remember that with frame relay, the addressing is kind of flipped. So router 1 sends to a destination, if you will, of 102, flies through the air and comes out on 201. And then router 2 sends to 201, flies through the air and comes out on 102. We talked about that in the first frame relay nugget. So that's what we're looking at. And then down here we've got 103, and then I've got 301 on the other side. I just like doing that. Now, when we've got router numbers, it's just so much easier to keep the numbers straight when you think, oh, well, this is for router 3 to access router 1 and router 1 to access. So that's why I choose that. And I will say, when you get in the frame relay world, I actually set up a frame relay connection one, and the service provider, I'm talking real world, service provider said, what do you want your Delcy numbers to be? I was like, sweet, I can pick them? He's like, oh yeah. So some service providers actually let you pick what Delcy numbers you want to go to each side. So you can do whatever you want. So look at our IP addressing finally. So this is all layer 2, right? Layer 2 cloud. IP addressing, we've got 192.168.1.1, They're all on the same subnet unnaturally, because this is multi-point. So router 2 thinks it can get to router 3 directly, but it really can't. It has to go through router 1. Okay. Let's bring up GNS3. That's where I built this little world. You can see we've got router 1 sitting over here. That's kind of our hub. Router 2, router 3. Frame switch sitting right in the middle. Let's bring up the config of router 1. There we go. Let's bring up the others while we're at it. Router 2 and router 3. That way I've got them all there. Okay. So, jumping back here. Okay. Oh, quick correction. I had the interfaces mislabeled. This is actually serial 0/0, and so is this. They were mislabeled before I brought up the GNS rewind. Don't rewind. You don't have to see my error. Just pretend like this is how it always was. Okay. So, I'm going to go into router 1. And let me bring this down to the corner just so I can see a little bit. Okay, so a quick orientation, show IP interface brief. Okay, 4 interfaces, really only going to be using one, which is the serial port. But let's actually go and get another one going. Let's do no shut on here. And just so each one of these have a LAN interface. There we go. So that way we've got a network. And now let's go under interface serial 0/0. Oh, by the way, Cisco's best practice is not to actually power on the interface until after you finish all your other config. It doesn't have to be that way, but for instance, if I were to do a no shut on the serial port right now, it would say, okay, I'm up, and then I change the encapsulation. It's like, oh, I'm going down. Oh, I'm going up. I'm going. And so it kind of flaps up and down, which sometimes will flag the service provider. They're like, whoa, something's wrong with you. So they may penalize you for that, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to do IP address here, 192.168.1.1. And then let's see what else. Okay, so encapsulation, frame relay. And and that's it. Ta-da! Welcome to Frame Relay. There's actually more to it than that. But in this topology, you're going to see it all kinds of works itself out. And I'll explain why in just a second. Okay, so right now the interface is down, and that's okay. Frame Relay is kind of there we go. It's now come up. You see that message? It's talking, getting the LMI thing going. Remember the local management interface from the concepts nugget? Kind of the language between your router and the service router right here. So LMI right now is delivering the list of Delcys. And oh, okay. So let me do a quick verification. I'm going to do a show frame relay PVC. Okay, good, good, good. Look at this. So we've got, it shows, okay, I've got two permanent virtual circuits. You can see Del C 102 and Del C 103, right? Now you might say, well, how did it know that? Through the magic of LMI. What happened is the service provider sitting in the squishy center of that cloud came over and said, hey, router 1, let's talk. And it said, did you know that you have Del C 102 and I've seen this many packets and I've seen all the statistics. Did you know you have Del C 103 and I've seen. So when you see these statistics, all this stuff like, what is backend, what is dead, all of that stuff is being delivered via LMI by the service provider, and you can actually it'll keep track of all those statistics, right? Now you also one other big thing I can see right here. I see the Del C number, and then I see right over here PVC status inactive. Okay. Three different terms. You want to know this. So PVC status. Let me write it up here. PVC stat. First one, inactive. What that means is the Del C number is valid, as in Del C 102 and 103 right here is recognized by the service provider, as an LMI was like, yeah, I'm totally on board with you, but the other side is not working. So if you see status inactive, that should immediately signal you, okay, something's wrong with the other side. Now, the opposite of that is status of active, right? That's good. We want to see that. That means both sides are talking, life is good. The third one is status is deleted. And that means you are trying to, let's say from router 1's perspective, so we're looking on router 1. From router 1's perspective, he is trying to use 103, and the service provider is like, I don't know what you're talking about, router 1. You're telling me Del C 103. I don't know what Del C 103 means. You must be using a deleted Del C. Like, I have no record of that whatsoever. Now you might wonder, well, good grief, didn't the service provider give those to you? Yes, they did. Then how can it be deleted? Well, it could either be they gave it to you and then they corrected their configuration. Maybe they had a misconfiguration, or more likely is you went on your router. We'll talk about this in just a second, and set up a frame relay map. So a frame relay map allows you to manually type in what Del Cs you want to use, right? So now you can totally see it, right? So if I go in there and say I want Del C 777, the service provider is going to say, well, I don't know what 777 is. So I'm going to reject that, So that's where those stats. So we'll see these again, but for now, let's head over to router 2 and do some config over there. By the way, all these routers have exactly the same interfaces. So let's go give it an IP address 10.2.2.1, just so it's got something on the LAN. And let's do on the WAN port, let's do encapsulation frame. Let's do IP address 192.168.1.2. And then no shut. Seriously, this you're like, come on, there's more to it, right? Now, for basic frame relay, no. Multi-point just kind of happens, and I'll show you how we can see that in just a moment. But let's, while we're at it, bring router 3 into the mix. Let's do interface fast Ethernet 00. Interface serial 0, IP address 192.168. 1.3, right? Am I on board? Yep, 1.3. Okay. 255.255.2. Okay, no shut. In cap. I'm just typing these in whatever order they come to my brain, so you can see there's no real order. Now let's jump over to router 1 again. I'm gonna hit the up arrow and do show frame relay PVC. You see anything that's changed? Okay, first off, we see a few little packets that are coming in here, but also check out that status. Oh yeah, we're active. Now when I typed in this command, this one was inactive. Let's try it again. Active, and oh, it's still inactive. It takes a second. So router 3 is just kind of minding his sweet time. So line protocol is, I bet you it's active. Let's do it again. Active, and come on, router 3, where are you at? So let's focus on router 1 and 2 first. So router 1, let's do the almighty ping, right, just to make sure I can reach router 2. Ping 192.168.1.2. Ta-da! 5 success message. So let's do a show frame relay map. All right, good. So what I'm seeing here is good. So I can see show frame relay map gives me the IP address 192.168.1.2 is actually mapped to DELC 102. This is a dynamic map. Broadcasts are actually allowed on this. So, for instance, routing protocols will work for this map, and it is defined and active. There's so much that goes into that. But first off, I'm also saying 1.3 is also active. This is another place we can see it. So if I hit the up arrow a couple times, show me frame relay PVC. Now I'm able to see 103 is active. Okay, so let's unpack that command because it says so much. First, let's look at the command itself. Show frame relay map. What that's showing is what IP addresses are mapped to what DELC. So I can see that 192.168.102 is actually mapped to DELC 102. So somehow the router had to figure that out. Now, in the Ethernet world, if we've got a computer and it's trying to find the MAC address of another computer, how does it do it? ARP, right? We say ping that computer, and the computer sends an ARP message saying, hello, 192.168.1.52, what's your MAC address? And this guy replies back with his MAC address. Well, in this case, it's a little backwards because router 1 links up to the service provider. The service provider, using LMI, gives him a list of DELCs, which are what? Layer 2, right? They're layer 2 addresses. So router 1, instead of saying, okay, I've got your IP addresses, let me figure out what MAC address you have, it's saying, I've got your essentially equivalent of a MAC address, which is a DELC. I don't know what IP addresses you are. So this is where our hero of the day, Inverse ARP, steps onto the scene. And it just like it sounds, right? ARP goes from IP address down to MAC address, whereas inverse ARP, backwards ARP, goes from MAC address or layer. Let's broaden this out. It goes from layer 2 address or DELC in this case up to the IP address. And the way it does it is simple. It just sends a message down each one of those DELC. I mean, it's like yelling down a big dark tunnel. It's like, hello, who's in there? You know, it's the same kind of thing. It sends a message down. It's like, hello, 102, who are you? And this guy receives it on the other side. Kind of coming out. He's like, oh, hey, I'm 192.168.102. And then, the router dynamically builds the map. That's what this dynamic world means. And by the way, the opposite is static, to where I manually type in using the frame relay map command what IP address and MAC address it has. But dynamic broadcasts are allowed. It's defined. It's active. It's working. So I mean, so much can be seen just by that one command of how this system all worked out. So at this point, I should be able to do a show frame relay PVC. And I see that DELC 102, 103, they're active. I'm seeing messages going across. Ping 192.168.1.3. I don't think I tried to do that. Oop, not 22, but 2. And we are successful. Okay, so let's go one step further. All right, I'm going to go on router 1, and let's go under router EIGRP, and let's do network 192.168.1. All right, let's just get EIGRP, and we'll do network 10.0.0. So we'll advertise our networks to the world, right? So I'm going to do that on each one of our routers. Let me pause. There we go. I've got it configured now on router 3. Same kind of thing. 192.168.10.0. No auto summary. So I'm turning off that auto summary. So I did on all 3 routers. We've got this set up. So then I went back to router 1. Again, let's get our bearings. Router 1 is sitting right here, and I do a show IP route. That's what I just did right here. And I can see that it is seeing 10.3.3.0, that's router 3, and 10.2.2.0, right? But let's go up to router 3, right? So router 3 being the bottom router there, bottom left. And do the same command. There we go. Show IP route. And check it out. Router 3 sees its own network, the fast Ethernet network that's connected, 10.3.3.0, and it sees the network behind router 1, but what's missing? Let's compare. Router 1, router 3. Router 1 knows about 10.2.2.0. Router 3 does not. Now we go back to that split horizon issue that we saw before. Let me clear this up. Whoa, that did not work. Hang on. There we go. So we're seeing the effects of split horizon, to where this guy over here has 10.3.3.0, 24. This guy over here has 10.220, 24. And he's got 10.110, 24. So as this is being advertised, as he says, hey, I know about 10.330, router 1 is going great, and I'm not allowed to send it to that guy. Split Horizon says do not send routing updates out the same interface that you received them on, and the same thing is happening for 10.220. It will not send it to router 3. So in the multi-point world, this is where I throw my hands in the air and go, well, so be it. The only real strategy that we have is to go in and disable Split Horizon. The way we do that is go under 00/0, and let's do no IP Split Horizon EIGRP Autonomous System 1. Enter. So we literally, again, kick one of those legs of our stool out, and you can see that it's saying, okay, well, I'm going to resynchronize my neighbors because my Split Horizon configuration has changed. And now I should be able to go over to router 2, do a show IP route, and now I'm seeing that. Again, so 10.111 and 10.330 is available, and notice it's both coming from this IP address. So that would be the IP address router 1, 10.3.3.1, and we are utterly and completely failing. Oh, I'm glad I pinged that. I forgot about something. Want to see something? Hang on. Let's go over to router 3. And so router 3, I'm going to go to, let's do show IP route. See if you can figure this out with me, all right? So you're not going to get this. Okay, if you get this, I'm totally stunned and awestruck, and I want your autograph. So I'm going to ping 10.2.2.1, which is also, this is the right IP address. So I want to make sure that so that is the IP address over here, and this one's over here. And so it's saying failure, I cannot get there, even though it's in the routing table, even though I'm getting that far. So next thought should be, okay, well, maybe a trace route, right? Well, let me hang on. Before I do that, I'm going to do a no IP domain lookup, because that just will kill you on time. So I'm going to do a trace route, 10.2.2.1. So we're like, okay, it's getting there. So it's getting to at least router 1, and then we just see death, death, death. We're not getting any further. Okay, so what's the problem? Okay, well, let's think about it. Router 3 knows how to get here. He sees I have to go through here and go right here. So my thought is, if we were to do a debug, I mean, we could, but why spend the time? On router 2, we would actually see the packets getting there. But now think with me, what source IP address is router 3 coming from? That one. Right? 192.168.1.3. Okay, if that's the case, well, let's check it out. You see why multipoint is just whacked? I'm like, well, wait a sec. So I'm on router 2. You're saying router 2 can't ping router 3, 192.168.1.3? That's exactly what I'm saying. Well, why not? Well, let's check it out. Show frame map. It's all right there. Proof is in the pudding. Router 2 only knows how to get to 1 DELC, or 1, I should say, IP address using that DELC, 192.168.1.1. That was the only, when he did an inverse ARP and said, hello, who's down this tunnel on 201, router 1 was the only one that gets it because it's a broadcast. It's not like router 1's going to forward that on. So he's like, hey, that's me, and fills in that map. But router 2 does not know how to reach 192.168.1.3. So in actuality, so let me just make sure I'm clearly painting the picture. When router 3 is pinging this interface of router 2, it's coming from this source IP address, which is actually getting there. But when router 2 says, okay, now I need to get back to 192.168.1.3, he's like, huh? I don't know how to get there. Essentially, if I were to say technically, I don't know what layer 2 address really reaches 192.168.1.3. What a great way to demonstrate the frame relay map command. I'm going to go into 00. It was totally unplanned, and it works out so well. I'm going to go into router 2. I'm going to do a frame relay map. I'm going to put in a manual mapping here. And I'm going to say, okay, this is for the IP protocol, because, we all know IPX is making a comeback along with AppleTalk and all these other protocols. But we're saying I'm going to map the IP address. Well, it's saying, well, what IP address? I'm going to say, here's how you reach 192.168.1.3. and it's going to say, okay, great. So how do I get there? What Del C do I use? Well, let's look. Router 2, well, our options are many, right? He's got one virtual circuit that we're paying for, 201. So we're saying, you know what? Go in and put it in the same tunnel, the same Del C, the same plane flight, whatever analogy works for you. Get on the same plane that you use when you fly over and reach router 1. Because router 1 is going to be able to know how to get there. Oop. So, get my fingers right here. So I'm going to say 201. I'm going to essentially send those requests to 201. So now let's go back and do a show frame relay map. Why do I keep getting my emphasis wrong? Show frame relay map. So we've got 192.168.1.1 out that Del C, right? Dynamic. It figured it out itself. Thank you, Cisco, for being dynamic. But then right here, it's like, here's where you drop the ball. 192.168.1.3 out the same Del C. Now I stepped in and did that statically, right? So now life is good, right? Right? Wrong. Why? All right, come on. If you couldn't get it the first time, do you know why it's now? Well, it's the same answer the other direction. So we're now coming from the source IP address of this, going down to here, and he's like, I don't know how to get to that IP address. So he's now the one put in the driver's seat. Like, I don't know how to get back to you. So do you see how painful it's like, wow, I thought this was like an easy config when we first did it. Well, let's go to router 3 and fix it, right? Let's go to show frame relay map and see what we got. First of all, just the dynamic one. Frame map, and we will go IP protocol 192.168.1.3. No. Thank you. That's where we're going. 1.2 is what I really meant. And we are going to be using that same Del C. Again, 301 to shoot it to router 1. So 301. Enter. Show frame map. And now I'm seeing, okay, now it's feeling a little better. Let's do a test. 192.168.1.2. And let's go back to router 2. Hit the up arrow. So good. So really good. I'm really glad we kind of went all the way with that. So let's go all the way, right? Show IP route. And I'm going to go 10.2.2.1. That was the whole thing that started this conversation, right? And success. We're getting there because now these guys fully understand, like, oh, I go through him. Oh, I go through him, and that lets me get over to you and you. Do you see why I don't like the multi-point world? It just feels so Band-Aid-ish. Like, oh, yeah, we got to kind of put that in there to make that work. And, oh, I forgot about that. I mean, it's just, I just don't like it. Let's do it. Let's do it the right way. We'll go into our point-to-point configuration. So, point-to-point configuration, we've got I don't know why I get so into my faces. So we've got the service router. Nothing has changed from their perspective. They've got the same Del Cs. We're paying the same amount. This is just our redesign of this topology. What I've done is I've literally powered down the routers, brought them back up because we want the multi-point configuration gone. It's out of there. So we'll start off with router 1. Actually, before I even open that, notice that I've now broken this into two networks. This guy is 192.168.1.0/24 between router 1 and router 2. Down here, I've got 192.168.2.0/24 between router 1 and router 3. So there are two completely different networks. Obviously, a huge waste of IP addresses, but that's okay in this scenario. And what I've done now is broken router 1 into sub-interfaces. .102 connects to Del C 102. .103 connects to Del C 103. So it's just still the same physical interface. It's just the router thinks it has more interfaces going on there. So let's start off with that one because that's the biggest config of them all. So let's kind of squish this over here so we can see it. All right, so show IP interface brief. We've got nothing. We'll go into serial 0/0 encapsulation frame relay. That's the only command that we have to type on serial 0/0. And we'll do no shutdown. Actually, hang on. Stop. The reason I'm not going to bring it up yet is because sometimes I've had this happen where inverse ARP will immediately go out and find out, oh, Delcy 102 is this and Delcy 103 is this, and it actually binds those Delcies to this interface, and you got to clear them out. It becomes painful. So let's do all the configuration and then we'll power it on, right? Okay, so back out here. I'm going to do interface serial 0/0 dot. Hit the question mark. Look at that. We've got subinterface heaven 102. Now it's going to ask us, do you want point-to-point or multi-point? And we'll do point-to-point. Now you can do weird configurations where you actually have subinterfaces going to multiple different, multi-point kind of configuration. But yeah, that's usually, I'll say usually, if you're going to create subinterfaces, it's going to be point-to-point, usually. So we'll give it the IP address 192.168.1.1. Now we're going to type one additional command, frame relay interface Delcy 102. See, this is the command that actually assigns Delcy 102 to this subinterface. It's not the subinterface number that does it. It says, okay, anytime this subinterface speaks on frame relay, it's going to come out as Delcy 102 because it's only going to one point. Matter of fact, if we exit out here, do a show frame relay PVC, and we can see Delcy 102 is now there. It's inactive right now because there's nothing on the other side, but it's there. It's assigned to that subinterface. So we'll hit the up arrow and do, well, let's just do interface serial 0/0.103. It gives you the option. Now, check this out. If I hit enter, it's like, oh, you need to type that in. We're like, okay, point to point. But once it's been defined, now watch. If I exit back out and do 103, it's like, oh, I already know what that is because you only have to define it as point-to-point once, and then from there on out it knows what it is. So IP address. And we'll do frame relay interface Delcy 103. We're going to tag our traffic with 103 every time it goes out. Yeah, so now, actually, let's get into interface serial 0/0, no shutdown. We can bring that guy up. So while that's powering up, because it's going to take a little while to talk with the service provider, let's go into Fast Ethernet 0/0 and just give it some LAN love. Sometimes I wonder, people are like, man, you type so fast, but I make so many mistakes. I wonder if I would just slow down to start off with, if like the balance of it all would end up being, I would save time if I would just type slower from the beginning, but I can't do it. I've got to type fast. Brief. All right. So we've got. So looks good. We've got those interfaces. So now notice it just went down. So all those interfaces are probably down. Yep. And that's just because there's nobody talking on the other side. It's like, hey, everything's inactive. Nobody's talking. Let's bring up a friend. Router 1 needs a friend, and it will be router 2. Now let me shrink this down on the other side of the screen. And just bring it up. So router 2. Now, we don't have to configure a subinterface for router 2, like .201. But the way I do it is, you know what? If I'm going to do subinterfaces on one, I'm going to do it on all so it's consistent. And that way it's not, one side's weird and one side's not and all that. So, again, new config. So let's go serial 0/0 in cap frame. No other config under there. So serial 0/0.201 point-to-point. IP address 192.168.1.2. Frame relay interface Delcy 201. See how doesn't it just feel better? And let's power that back on. So we'll go 0/0 no shut. It just feels better to now. I've got this point to point. It goes to one location. Now you might be. I know some of you are big thinkers, and you're already ahead of me. You're like, finish your typing and then talk, Jeremy. Okay. Pressure's on. When people are looking over your shoulder, you have trouble typing too, don't you? So I'm going to go back out and do show IP interface brief. Man, ever since I've said something, I cannot type worth anything. So I forgot to power it on. Okay, so what was I talking? Oh, you might be thinking, well, before we had this deal where we couldn't get over here, we had to do all those funky frame relay maps to make it happen, right? So how's it going to fix itself now? Well, see, that's where EIGRP is going to come into play. Matter of fact, let's go back to router 1. We need a little EIGRP over there too. Let's go router EIGRP 1, and we'll do no auto summary network. Let's go let's use a wildcard mask. 00255.255, and then we'll do network 10.0.0.0. So every 10. Okay. So we'll come over to router 2. Also give it some EIGRP. And no auto. Network 192.168.1 and network 10.0.0.0. Okay. So are we talking? We should be talking at this point. Show IP. Oh, you know what? I completely rebooted my routers, and I think I forgot. I think I forgot to save the frame relay config. Dang it. Well, actually, this is so I promised I would show you the frame relay config. I just didn't intend on it happening this way. Let's bring this up. Let's see. What did I lose? No? Okay, it still has a host name. Show IP interface brief. Yep, scratch that. So hang on. Let me just do show frame relay route. Okay, so it just must have forgotten to power the interfaces back up. So I want to show you something. Let me show you something. I'm going to go under 000, no shut. 01, no shut. 02, no shut. And 03, no shut. So how does this, let me talk about while we're waiting for all these to come up, how does this frame relay switch work? Okay, so we see a cloud, right? But really, that is just a Cisco router. Matter of fact, it's a Cisco router where you can see over here on the right-hand side, serial 0 is connected to router 1, router 2, router 3, right? So let me show you the config of the frame relay switch. If you want to build this in your home lab, here's how you do it. First thing you want to do is go on the router. You want to be the frame switch, kind of the middle router, and you want to type in the command in global configuration mode, frame relay switching. And what that does is tell this router, I'm going to be a frame relay switch. So literally, you know, it's that simple. Frame relay switching, global config, you're done. Then you're going to go under each and every interface. Matter of fact, let me just filter it down because there's not much else under here. Like serial 0/0. Now you can see serial 0, look in the right, upper right, is connected to router 1, right? Router 1 right there. Check it out. We type in encapsulation frame relay, no IP address. The service router is supposed to be invisible, so there's actually no IP address. We say frame relay interface type is DCE. Remember, think back early on serial links. One side's DTE, other side's DCE. So frame relay, some iOS versions require that you type that in. Honestly, I never stopped to figure out which one. That's part of my brain. I always type that command in. But here's the big command: frame relay route 102 interface serial 0/1 201. Here's what this says. Serial 0/0, which is connected to router 1, right? So let's get the perspective. So this we're talking about this link. It says, if you receive something tagged with Delcy 102, go ahead and flip it around and send it out serial 0/1, but retag it at 201. Let's come back here. Bring up the frame relay switch. So again, we got to be able to see all this at the same time. Let's squish this down. Okay. Look at this command. So this, from the service provider, this is his serial 0/0 interface. And we're saying under that interface, okay, if you receive 102, notice 102 right there, on serial 0/0, so under that interface, if you get 102, then go ahead and take it and send it out serial 0/1. Where's serial 0/1? Right here. And here's serial 0/2, right? Send it out serial 0/1 on Delcy 201. Right there, right? Now, hang on. Let's check out serial 0/1, right? So on that one, so now we're looking at the config of the service provider from this perspective. It's saying if you receive Delcy 201 over there, then go ahead and flip it out serial 0/0. That's over here, right? Router 1 on Delcy 102. It wasn't until I saw this that I really got frame relay. I was like, oh, that's it? So, I mean, that's what my $150 activation charge is to pay the service provider, pretty much. I mean, they do a lot more, but yeah, that's really what they're doing. Is they're going in their little router and they're saying, okay, when you see this Delcy, here's it's kind of like if you see this on serial 0/2, which is here, 301, then go in and take it and send it out your serial 0/0 port on 103. So send it out right there, right? Seriously, if you need to rewind and go back through that again, just seeing that config, I mean that's like demystifying the cloud. This is like Ripley's Believe It or Not. I can't believe that's how simple it is. So that's from the service router's perspective how it works. But now that we've powered on all the service router interfaces, betcha router 1's working now, and I see a neighbor. That's a good sign. Show IP interface brief reveals that our interfaces are up, except for this guy, and that's okay. We haven't configured router 3, but we see router 2 showing up in the list. Let's ping 192.168.1.2. That's router 2. He's there. Show IP EIGRP neighbors. He's there. Show IP route, and it's there. That was my preemptive there. 10.2.2.0 is showing up in the routing table. Ping 10.2.2.1, and we're there. Okay. Let's whisk router 3 into this mix of things. And by the time you see this config, the third time you should be like, okay, I'm feeling it now. Fast Ethernet 0/0, let's just give it a LAN card. Encapsulation frame relay on the serial port. And we'll just be brave. We'll do a no shutdown there. So router 3, there we go. So he is interface 00/0.301 point to point. We'll do IP address 192.168.2.2. Frame relay interface Delcy 301, right? Good. And by the way, you might notice it's taking you in this little Delcy config mode. If you get into advanced frame relay, you can apply some different class of services and all kinds of stuff here. But for now, we'll just say, it's fine. It's assigned. So now I can do a show frame relay PVC. We see it's active. Life is good. We're communicating to the other side. Let's hop back over to router 1 and just do the show IP interface brief. Now we see, okay, that guy's up. Ping 192.168.2.2, router 3. Okay, we're talking. So let's now configure router 3 for EIGRP. Good. No. Totally wrong. I was thinking router 3 is 3.0. Should be 2.0, right? Because that's the network that. Okay, there we go. Now good. Now we've got the neighbor up and in place. Show IP EIGRP neighbors. 2 neighbors are in place. We're looking good. Now let's on router 3 do a show IP route, and here's how it all fixes itself. So no more funky frame relay maps, no more weirdness that we have to do with the multipoint, but here's why. Notice EIGRP, now that EIGRP identifies these as, okay, this is network 1, this is network 2 down here, and then we've got different networks all scattered throughout over here. EIGRP is advertising this network down to router 3, and it's advertising this network up here to router 2. So when I look at my routing table, I actually see the WAN link between router 1 and router 2 that's being advertised. So I just see that as a completely different network. EIGRP is just doing its thing. I mean, it's doing what it's supposed to. We can envision the topology to look like this. There's no cloud. We don't need to because we're treating it like a series of point-to-point links. So now on router 3, I'll be able to ping 10.1.1.1, 10.2.2.1, and obviously 10.3.3.1, which is sitting on router 3. It's just, to finish it off with a grand finale, let's do a trace route. Turn off the domain lookups, and we will do a trace route 10.2.2.1. Showing going through router 1, hitting router 2, and we have success. I hope you're feeling better about frame relay now. Just living in the live interface, watching the magic happen. I did want to go back and revisit that frame switch. I was going through the show run. Let me go back because I typed this command in, but didn't really dwell on it. Show frame relay route. What a great way to see where all the Delcies are coming and going based on these commands that you type in here. This establishes the frame relay routing table, just showing on serial 0/0 when I receive this and this, I'm sending it out this interface on this and this. So that's from the frame relay switch perspective. That's how you're able to do it. Now, if you are a GNS3 fan, which I am, you notice that on the left-hand side over here, they have a frame relay switch. I actually don't use that. It's kind of like a quick and easy frame relay switch where you can go in and, say, okay, Delcy, 101 goes to port 10 on 201. You can start adding in all these little mappings that way. I don't actually use that device at all. I actually just go put a Cisco router in the middle, and then I change the icon, change the symbol, so it looks like a cloud, and then I configure that as a frame relay switch because it feels better for me. To have just a Cisco device in the middle that I really know how it's working. It's not just using some magical connection that GNS3 does. So that's pulling back the curtain how you can set up a frame relay lab. Let me also mention when I was studying for the CCIE. This is how I saved myself a ton of time. GNS3 wasn't even around back then. There was no such thing. All that was is these rumors that Cisco had this product called IOU, iOS on Unix, and if we could only get our hands on it. But I actually had racks of physical gear, and with what I would do is, well, I'm drawing a cloud, but I would configure. I had one router with actually 8 serial ports, and I would set that up to where all of the other routers in my rack would connect physically, so they would all connect physically here, and I set that up as a frame relay switch because what that let me do is without manually going and moving cables and saying, okay, well now I want this one connected to that one, or now I want that one connected to that one for some new CCIE topology or diagram that I was trying to set up. All I would have to do is get into this frame relay switch, and I would just type in different frame relay route commands, and that would allow me to virtually connect these, create virtual circuits as my lab needed. And that way I would never have to, if you ever go to the point of going to the CCIE certification, hands-on is an absolute must. And you find that you spend a ton of time, if you got physical gear, just recabling. I mean, just moving this cable down to this and this and that and that. I know nowadays GNS3 is out there, so people are like, why do I buy gear anymore? It's I will say, when you get to that level, it's hard to replace actually having some stuff. But nonetheless, that's another use of frame relay. All in all, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.